Commander Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair, looking at the stars through the front window of his ship. The USS Vigilant was a small patrol vessel, nothing fancy, but it was his home among the stars. He had been out here for 3 months, checking the empty space between Earth and the nearest star systems. "Sir, I'm getting something strange on the sensors," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. She was young but smart, one of the best sensor operators in the fleet. Jake walked over to look at her screen. "What kind of strange?" "It's big, sir, really big. And it's not moving like any ship I've ever seen." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all his years of space travel, he had never seen anything that wasn't made by humans. "Put it on the main screen." The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge go quiet. The ship was huge, at least 10 times bigger than the Vigilant. It looked like it was made of crystal and metal, with strange curves and angles that hurt to look at. Lights moved across its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. "Captain Lisa Bennett to the bridge," Jake said into his radio. Lisa was their science officer, and if anyone could figure out what they were looking at, it would be her. Lisa arrived quickly, her red hair tied back and her eyes bright with excitement. "My God," she whispered when she saw the alien ship. "It's beautiful." "Beautiful or not, we need to figure out what it wants," Jake said. "Try to make contact." Lisa moved to the communication station. "This is the Earth vessel, USS Vigilant to unknown ship. Please respond." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the radio crackled to life with sounds no human had ever heard before. It was like music mixed with static, beautiful, and scary at the same time. "It's trying to talk to us," Lisa said, her fingers flying over the controls. "Give me a few minutes." Meanwhile, far away on a planet called Zephyria Prime, Admiral Kethvar stood in his command center. He was tall, even for his people, with skin that looked like blue crystal and 4 arms that moved with perfect grace. His eyes, which could see colors humans couldn't even imagine, studied the reports coming in from his scout ships. "So we have found them at last," he said to his aide, a younger Zephyrian named Veltham. "The source of those radio signals." "Yes, Admiral. They call themselves humans. Our ship has made contact with one of their patrol vessels." Kethvar looked at the data on his screen. The human ship was tiny, weak, and primitive. Its weapons were simple projectile devices that would barely scratch Zephyrian armor. Its engines were crude chemical rockets that could barely push it between planets, let alone stars. "How disappointing," Kethvar said. "When we first detected their radio signals, I thought we had found a worthy opponent. Instead, we find children, playing with toys. Should we destroy them?" Veltham asked. "No," Kethvar said after thinking for a moment. "We should study them first. Learn their ways, their strengths and weaknesses. It has been too long since we had a new species to add to our empire." Back on the Vigilant, Lisa had managed to create a basic translation program. The alien sounds were slowly becoming words. The humans could understand. "Greetings, small ship," came a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "We are the Zephyrian Empire. We mean you no harm at this time." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. At this time, didn't sound very friendly. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Force. We welcome peaceful contact with your people." "We are pleased to meet you, Commander Morrison. We would like to learn about your species." For the next several hours, the two ships shared information. The humans learned that the Zephyrian Empire controlled 12 star systems and had been spacefaring for over 1,000 years. They had advanced technology that made human science look like Stone Age tools. The Zephyrians learned that humans were new to space travel, had only recently developed faster-than-light travel, and controlled only one star system. They seemed weak, divided, and completely unprepared for galactic politics. "Thank you for this exchange," the Zephyrian voice said finally. "We will be in touch." The massive alien ship vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the Vigilant alone among the stars. Jake sat back in his chair, feeling tired. "Lisa, get me a channel to Earth Command. They need to know about this." "Already on it, sir," she said, but her voice was worried. "Jake, did you notice something about the way they talked to us?" "What do you mean?" "They didn't ask us anything about our military or our weapons. They just watched and listened, like they were studying us." Jake thought about this. "You think they're planning something?" "I think they're planning everything," Lisa said quietly. On Zephyria Prime, Admiral Kethver was meeting with the High Council. The council chamber was a massive room made of living crystal that grew from the planet's core. 12 of the most powerful Zephyrians in the galaxy sat around a table that floated in the air. "The humans are no threat," Kethva reported. "Their technology is primitive, their numbers are small, and their military tactics are simple. We could conquer their entire species with a single battle fleet." "Then why haven't you?" asked Council Leader Zephara, an ancient Zephyrian whose crystal skin had turned silver with age. "Because there is no hurry," Kethver said. "We can take our time, study them completely, and then add them to our empire when we choose." "They're not going anywhere." "Very well," Zephara said. "Continue your observations, but do not wait too long. Other species might discover them first." "Of course, Council Leader." As the meeting ended, Kethver felt satisfied. The humans would be an easy conquest when the time came. They had no idea what they were up against, but in the deep space between stars, something was already changing. The humans had learned they were not alone in the universe, and they were not the strongest species out there. This knowledge would change everything. The Zephyrians thought they were studying primitive creatures who posed no threat. They had no idea that humans had a gift that would surprise them. Humans could learn, adapt, and change faster than any species the Zephyrians had ever encountered. The real study was just beginning, and the Zephyrians would soon discover that humans were full of surprises. Colonel Ryan Hayes sat in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, reading the report from the USS Vigilant for the third time. The words didn't get any better with repetition. Earth had made contact with an alien empire that controlled 12 star systems and had technology that was centuries ahead of human capabilities. "Sir, General Cole wants to see you in the war room," said Lieutenant Tony Campbell, Hayes' aide. Hayes nodded and walked down the long corridor to where Earth's military leaders were gathering. The war room was filled with screens showing star charts, ship positions, and intelligence reports. General Patricia Cole stood at the center of it all, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, and her face showing the stress of command. "Ryan, good you're here," she said. "We need to talk about what we're facing." Around the table sat the best military minds on Earth. Major Alex Turner from Special Forces was there, along with Dr. Kevin Walsh from the Defense Research Institute, and Commander Amy Foster, who had been promoted after her work on the Vigilant. "Let's not sugarcoat this," General Cole said. "We're outgunned, outnumbered, and outtouched. If the Zephyrians decide to attack us tomorrow, we lose. The question is, what do we do about it?" "We could try to negotiate," suggested Dr. Walsh. "Maybe they don't want to fight." "They called us weak," Major Turner said, reading from the contact report. "They're studying us like bugs under a microscope." "That doesn't sound like they want to be friends." Colonel Hayes looked at the star charts. "What if we don't fight them the way they expect?" "What do you mean?" General Cole asked. "Look at their empire," Hayes said, pointing to the map. 12 star systems, thousands of ships, probably billions of people. They're used to big battles, fleet against fleet, army against army. What if we don't give them that kind of fight?" Commander Foster leaned forward. You mean guerrilla warfare? Hit-and-run attacks? Not just hit and run, Hayes said. I mean, we become unpredictable. We don't follow any rules they understand. We make them guess what we're going to do next, and every time they guess wrong. Dr. Walsh shook his head. That sounds like a way to delay the inevitable, not win. Maybe, Hayes said. But it's better than surrendering without a fight. General. Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up. Ryan's right. We can't win a straight fight, so we don't fight straight. Alex, I want you to start training special forces teams for deep space operations. Amy, work with Kevin to figure out how to hide our ships and make them harder to detect. Ryan, you're in charge of overall strategy. What about the politicians? Dr. Walsh asked. The president will want to try diplomacy first. Let him try, General Cole said. But we prepare for war. Over the next few weeks, Earth's military began to change in ways the Zephyrians couldn't see. Small teams of humans started practicing new kinds of warfare. They learned to fight in zero gravity, to live for months in tiny ships, and to think. Like spies instead of soldiers. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker led one of these teams. He was a former Navy SEAL who had volunteered for the space program. His job was to take a small, fast ship deep into space and find out everything he could about the Zephyrian Empire. Remember, Colonel Hayes told him before he left, you're not there to fight. You're there to watch, learn, and come back alive. Parker's ship, the Shadowrunner, was barely bigger than a fighter jet. It had been modified with the best stealth technology Earth could build. It wasn't invisible, but it was small and quiet enough to avoid detection if Parker was careful. The journey to Zephyrian space took 3 weeks. When Parker arrived, he couldn't believe what he saw. The Zephyrians had built cities in space, massive. Structures that floated between planets like artificial moons. Their ships moved in regular patterns, following trade routes that had been used for centuries. They're so confident, Parker reported back to Earth. Their security is almost non-existent. They don't expect anyone to spy on them. Parker spent a month moving through Zephyrian space, mapping their installations and recording their communications. What he found was both encouraging and terrifying. The Zephyrians were incredibly powerful, but they were also predictable. They did everything the same way they had done it for hundreds of years. Meanwhile, on Zephyria Prime, Admiral Kethfer was getting more reports about human activities. Zephyrian spy ships had been watching Earth, and what they saw confused them. The humans are acting strangely, reported Captain Zeth Mar, one of Kethfer's intelligence officers. They're not building large fleets or massing their armies. Instead, they're scattering their forces and making their ships smaller and harder to see. Smaller ships? Kethfer asked. That makes no sense. How can they fight with tiny vessels? Perhaps they're planning to surrender, suggested Veltham. Maybe. They realize they cannot win. But Kethfer wasn't so sure. Something about human behavior bothered him, though he couldn't say what. Back on Earth, the preparations continued. Captain Nicole Wright, a former Air Force pilot, was given command of a new type of unit called a disruption squadron. Her job was to take a small group of ships and cause as much trouble as possible for the Zephyrians when the time came. How are we supposed to fight ships that are 10 times bigger than ours? Asked Lieutenant Gary Lewis, one of Wright's pilots. We don't fight their ships, Wright explained. We fight their supply lines, their communication networks, their confidence. We make them worry about things they've never had to worry about before. Dr. Samuel Chun, working in a secret laboratory, was developing new uses for human technology. He couldn't make human weapons as powerful as Zephyrian ones, but he could make them work in ways the Zephyrians wouldn't expect. What if we use mining? Equipment as weapons? He suggested to his team. Or turn cargo ships into missile platforms. The Zephyrians will be looking for military vessels. They might not notice civilian ships until it's too late. The most important part of the human preparation was happening in the intelligence services. Teams of analysts were studying every piece of information they could get about Zephyrian culture, politics, and psychology. Dr. Amanda King, an anthropologist who had been recruited by the military, made a crucial discovery. The Zephyrians aren't just militarily powerful, she reported to General Cole. Their entire society is based on the idea that they're superior to everyone else. If we can make them doubt that, we might be able to defeat them without destroying their fleets. How do we do that? General Cole asked. We show them that we understand them better than they understand us, Dr. King said. We prove that being primitive doesn't mean being stupid. As the months passed, the Zephyrians continued to watch the humans, waiting for the right moment to begin their conquest. They saw the scattered human ships and the strange training exercises, but they didn't understand what it meant. The humans continued to behave oddly, Kethve reported to the High Council, but they pose no real threat. When we decide to move against them, it will be simple. But unknown to the Zephyrians, the humans were preparing something they had never encountered before. Not a traditional military response, but something much more dangerous, a completely new way of thinking about warfare. The Zephyrians had studied human tactics and found them weak and primitive, but they had only seen the tactics humans used against other humans. They had no idea what humans could do when they really had to fight for their survival. The real test was coming, and both sides were about to learn something new about the nature of war. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory, watching the human star system grow larger on his screens. Behind him followed the largest battle fleet the Zephyrian Empire had assembled in 50 years. 300 ships, enough firepower to destroy entire planets, all aimed at one small world called Earth. Admiral, we'll reach the outer planets in 6 hours, reported Captain Zethmar. Should we begin the assault? No, Kethver said. We follow the plan. Demonstrate our power first. Give them a chance to surrender, then crush any resistance. Quickly and cleanly. But as the Zephyrian fleet moved deeper into the solar system, something felt wrong. Kethver expected to see human ships rushing to defend their homeworld. Instead, he saw almost nothing. Where are their fleets? He asked. Sensors show small groups of ships scattered throughout the system, reported the sensor officer. But no major concentrations of forces. Perhaps they're hiding, suggested Veltham, who had been promoted to battle coordinator, waiting for the right moment to attack. Kethver nodded, but he wasn't convinced. The humans were acting like no enemy he had ever faced. Meanwhile, in a small asteroid mining station, Colonel Danny Rodriguez was watching the Zephyrian fleet on his sensors. Rodriguez had been a Marine before joining the space program, and now he commanded one of the new Chaos units that General Cole had created. There they are, he said to his team. Just like we expected. Big, impressive, and completely predictable. Lieutenant Joe Martinez looked at the massive fleet on the screen. Sir, how are we supposed to fight that? We don't fight it, Rodriguez said with a smile. We ignore it. Rodriguez activated his communicator. Control, this is Chaos Unit 7. The big fleet is heading for Earth, just like we thought. Recommend we proceed with Phase 1. Confirmed, Chaos 7, came the reply from General Cole herself. Begin Phase 1. All units, you are go for Operation Scattered Storm. Across the solar system, small groups of humans began to move. But instead of rushing to defend Earth, they were heading in the opposite direction. Toward the edges of Zephyrian space. Captain Nicole Wright commanded a squadron of modified cargo ships that had been turned into fast attack vessels. Her target wasn't the massive Zephyrian fleet, but something much more important, their supply lines. Remember, she told her pilots, we hit them fast, we hit them hard, and we disappear before they know what happened. We're not trying to destroy their whole fleet. We just want to make them worry. Wright's ships jumped to hyperspace, heading for a Zephyrian supply depot 3 star systems away. The depot was lightly defended because it was far from any combat zone. The Zephyrians had never needed to worry about attacks on their rear areas. That was about to change. Meanwhile, Admiral Kethver was growing more frustrated by the hour. His fleet had reached Earth's outer planets, but there was still no sign of serious human resistance. A few small ships had fired on his advanced scouts, but they had run away as soon as larger Zephyrian vessels appeared. This is wrong, he said. To Veltham, where is their main fleet? Where are their planetary defenses? Perhaps they've already given up, Veltham suggested. Maybe they realize they cannot win. But then the reports started coming in from other parts of Zephyrian space. A supply convoy had been attacked near the Kelty system. A communication relay had been destroyed in the Vorth sector. Mining operations in the Ziren belt had gone silent. What? Kethver stared at the reports. How is this possible? My fleet is here, attacking their homeworld. How can they be attacking us elsewhere? On Earth, General Cole was watching the same reports with great satisfaction. It's working, she said to Colonel Hayes. They expected us to defend Earth with everything we had. Instead, we're attacking them everywhere except where they're strongest. Phase 2? Hayes asked. Phase 2, Cole confirmed. Across human space, the real plan began to unfold. The humans had never intended to fight a traditional battle. Instead, they had turned their entire military into something the Zephyrians had never seen before. A swarm of independent units that could strike anywhere, anytime, without warning. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker, who had spent months studying Zephyrian space, led a team to one of their most important facilities, a shipyard that produced their battle cruisers. The facility was heavily defended, but only against frontal attacks. No one had ever tried to sneak in through the waste disposal system before. This is either brilliant or completely insane, muttered Sergeant Helen Brooks as they crawled through the maintenance tunnels. With luck, it's both, Parker replied. They didn't try to destroy the shipyard. Instead, they planted devices that would disrupt the facility's computer systems, causing delays and confusion for months. By the time the Zephyrians figured out what had happened, Parker's team was already gone. Back at Earth, Admiral Kethver was trying to understand what was happening to his empire. Reports of human attacks were coming in from dozens of different locations, but the attacks made no sense. The humans weren't trying to hold territory or destroy major installations. Instead, they seemed to be deliberately causing chaos and confusion. It's like fighting smoke, Veltham complained. Every time we think we've found them, they disappear. And every time we move forces to defend one area, they attack somewhere else, added Captain Zethmar. Kethver studied the tactical displays, trying to find a pattern in the human attacks. But there was no pattern. That was the point. Dr. Amanda King, watching from Earth's command center, smiled as she read the Zephyrian communications that human intelligence had intercepted. They're getting frustrated, she reported to General Cole. Their entire military doctrine is based on predictable battles with clear objectives. We're not giving them anything predictable. How long can we keep this up? Asked Colonel Hayes. As long as we need to, Dr. King replied. The Zephyrians are used to quick, decisive victories. They're not prepared for a long, confusing war where they can't tell who's winning. The confusion was spreading through the Zephyrian fleet. Officers who had never experienced uncertainty began to doubt their orders. Ships that had never been attacked began to worry about surprise assaults. Supply convoys that had traveled safely for centuries started demanding military escorts. "Admiral," reported the communications officer on the Eternal Glory, "we're receiving requests for reinforcements from 17 different sectors. They all say they're under attack." 17? Kethfer couldn't believe it. How many ships do these humans have? "Our intelligence estimates suggest no more than a few hundred combat vessels," Veltham said. "Then how are they attacking 17 sectors simultaneously?" It was a question the Zephyrians couldn't answer, because they didn't understand how humans thought about warfare. The Zephyrians saw each ship as a single unit that could only be in one place at one time. The humans saw each ship as part of a larger organism that could strike multiple targets by working together in ways the Zephyrians had never imagined. Captain Nicole Wright's attack on the supply depot had been perfectly timed to coincide with attacks on 6 other installations. The Zephyrians saw 7 separate attacks and assumed they needed 7 separate fleets to respond. The humans saw one coordinated operation that achieved multiple objectives with minimal resources. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Tony Campbell from his position in the asteroid belt, "Zephyrian patrol ships are starting to travel in larger groups. They're scared." Colonel Rodriguez nodded with satisfaction. "Good. Scared enemies make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, we'll be there to take advantage." The Zephyrians were learning that fighting humans was unlike anything they had experienced before. Every assumption they had made about warfare was being challenged. Every rule they had followed for centuries was being broken, and the humans were just getting started. Admiral Kethfer looked at the tactical display showing his massive fleet surrounding Earth, and for the first time in his long military career, he wondered if he was fighting the right battle in the right place. The humans had studied Zephyrian tactics and found them predictable. Now the Zephyrians were discovering that human tactics had no limits at all. General Patricia Cole stood before the largest gathering of human military leaders since the formation of the Space Force. Representatives from every branch of service, every special unit, and every allied nation filled the underground auditorium. The message she was about to deliver would change the course of the war. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "for the past 6 months, we've been testing the Zephyrian Empire. We've learned their strengths, their weaknesses, and most importantly, how they think. Today, we stop testing and start winning." She pressed a button, and the lights dimmed. A massive holographic display appeared, showing 15 star systems, with hundreds of targets marked in red. Operation Scattered Storm has 3 phases. Phase 1 was disruption. We confused them, scared them, and made them doubt their intelligence. Phase 2 was infiltration. We got our people into their space and learned their secrets. Phase 3 is victory. Major Tony Campbell, now promoted to colonel, stood up. "Ma'am, are you saying we're going to attack 15 systems simultaneously?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Cole replied. "And we're going to do it with resources they can't track, using methods they can't predict, hitting targets they don't expect." In the audience, Commander Helen Brooks raised her hand. "General, with respect, we don't have enough ships for an operation that size." Cole smiled. "Helen, you're thinking like a Zephyrian. You're thinking we need big fleets to fight big battles. But what if I told you we could cripple their entire empire without firing a single shot at their main battle fleets?" She changed the display to show the Zephyrian Empire's structure. "Look at this. 12 star systems, thousands of planets, millions of installations. But it all depends on 3 things: communication, transportation, and morale." Dr. Samuel Chun, who had been working on new technologies, stood up excitedly. "You want to attack their infrastructure." "Not just attack it," Cole said. "We're going to make it work for us." The plan she outlined was unlike anything in military history. Instead of trying to destroy the Zephyrian Empire, the humans would take control of it from the inside. Teams of human specialists would infiltrate key installations and turn the Zephyrians' own systems against them. Captain Joe Martinez, who had been leading covert operations in Zephyrian space, was given command of the most dangerous mission. "Joe, you and your team are going to Zephyria Prime itself. We need you to get into their central command systems." "Sir," Martinez said, "that's the most heavily defended planet in their empire. How are we supposed to get in?" Dr. Amanda King stepped forward. "Because we understand them better than they understand themselves. We know their culture, their psychology, their blind spots. We're going to use their own prejudices against them." The plan was based on a crucial weakness King had discovered in Zephyrian society. The Zephyrians believed so strongly in their own superiority that they couldn't imagine being outsmarted by a primitive species. This blind spot would be their downfall. 2 weeks later, the operation began. Across 15 star systems, human teams that had been hiding in Zephyrian space for months suddenly became active. But instead of attacking military targets, they went after something much more valuable: the Empire's sense of invincibility. Lieutenant Commander Gary Lewis led a team that infiltrated a Zephyrian cultural center on their most important colony, World. Instead of bombing it, they left behind evidence that the Zephyrians were planning to abandon the colony. The evidence was fake, but it was so well crafted that even Zephyrian experts believed it. Within hours, panic spread through the colony. If the Empire was planning to abandon them, what did that say about the war? Were the humans winning? Was the Empire weaker than they had been told? Similar operations were happening across Zephyrian space. Captain Rachel Torres and her team hacked into Zephyrian news networks and broadcast subtle propaganda that made it seem like the Empire was losing the war. The broadcasts were so skillfully done that most Zephyrians thought they were watching their own government's reports. But the most crucial operation was happening on Zephyria Prime itself. Captain Martinez and his team had infiltrated the planet by posing as refugees from a colony that had supposedly been attacked by humans. The Zephyrians, in their arrogance, barely questioned their story. Remember, Martinez told his team as they prepared for the final phase, "We're not here to destroy their command center. We're here to make them question everything they think they know about this war." Meanwhile, Admiral Kethvar was experiencing the worst month of his military career. Reports were coming in from across the Empire, but none of them made sense. Some colonies were reporting human attacks that had never happened. Others were reporting victories that seemed too good to be true. "Velvam," he said to his aide, "I need accurate intelligence reports. What is really happening out there?" "Sir, I've been trying to get clear information, but our communication networks are experiencing unprecedented problems. Messages are being delayed, corrupted, or lost entirely." What Veltham didn't know was that human teams had been systematically infiltrating Zephyrian communication systems. They weren't destroying the networks, they were manipulating them. False reports were being inserted, real reports were being delayed, and the overall effect was complete confusion in the Zephyrian command structure. Dr. William Barnes, Earth's leading expert on information warfare, was coordinating the deception campaign from a hidden base in the asteroid belt. "The beauty of this," he explained to his team, "is that we're not lying to them. We're letting them lie to themselves." The Zephyrians were so used to getting accurate information from their advanced systems that they couldn't imagine someone was manipulating those systems. When they received false reports, they believed them. When they received contradictory information, they assumed their own people had made mistakes. On Zephyria Prime, Captain Martinez had achieved the impossible. His team had gained access to the Empire's central intelligence database. But instead of stealing information, they were adding some. "Plant the reports about the human superweapons," Martinez ordered. "Make it look like our intelligence services discovered them through normal channels." The false reports described human weapons, That didn't exist. Planet-killing bombs, invisible fleets, mind control devices. The reports were carefully crafted to seem believable to Zephyrian scientists who didn't understand human technology. Within days, panic began to spread through the highest levels of Zephyrian government. If the humans had such powerful weapons, why hadn't they used them yet? Were they waiting for the right moment? Could the Zephyrians even win this war? The tipping point came when Admiral Kethfor received a report that seemed to confirm his worst fears. According to his intelligence services, the humans had developed a weapon that could destroy entire star systems by causing suns to explode. The weapon was allegedly based on technology that the Zephyrians didn't understand and couldn't defend against. This changes everything, Kethver told the High Council in an emergency session. If this report is accurate, we're not just fighting for conquest anymore. We're fighting for survival. Council leader Zephyra, who had lived through 8 centuries of Zephyrian expansion, looked older than her years. How could we have so badly underestimated them? Perhaps, suggested another council member, we should consider negotiating with them. The words sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Zephyrian Empire had never negotiated with anyone. They conquered or they withdrew, but they never compromised. But as reports continued to arrive from across the empire, each one more disturbing than the last, the council began to realize that they were facing something unprecedented. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning. What the Zephyrians didn't understand was that the humans had weaponized something more powerful than any bomb or ship, uncertainty itself. By making the Zephyrians doubt their own information, question their own capabilities, and fear their own future, the humans had achieved what no traditional military force could have done. Admiral Kethver looked at the reports scattered across his desk and realized that he no longer knew what was real and what wasn't. The humans had turned his own intelligence systems against him, and he couldn't tell truth from fiction anymore. For the first time in 1,000 years of Zephyrian expansion, an enemy had made them afraid, and fear, the humans had learned, was the most powerful weapon of all. The Zephyrian High Council chamber, once filled with the confident voices of galactic conquerors, now echoed with uncertain whispers. Council leader Zephyra looked around at her fellow leaders, seeing doubt in their crystal faces for the first time in centuries. Admiral Kethvar, she said, her voice carrying the weight of 800 years, give us your honest assessment of our situation. Kethvar stood before the council, his forearms clasped behind his back, his blue crystalline skin dimmed with stress. Council leader, I must report that we are facing an enemy unlike any in our history. The humans have not defeated us in traditional battle, but they have made it impossible for us to function as an empire. He activated a holographic display showing the chaos across Zephyrian space. Our communication networks are unreliable. Our supply lines are constantly disrupted. Our colonies are in panic. Our military commanders don't trust their own intelligence reports, and we still cannot predict what the humans will do next. Veltham, standing beside his admiral, added, Sir, we estimate that the humans have deployed less than 500 combat vessels against our empire of thousands of ships. Yet they have achieved what no enemy has ever accomplished. They have made us afraid of shadows. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Commander Gary Lewis sat in his tiny stealth ship, watching a massive Zephyrian battle fleet that was clearly lost. The fleet had been sent to defend a colony from a human attack that had never been planned. The colony was safe, the humans were nowhere near it, but the Zephyrian fleet was burning fuel and resources, protecting against a threat that existed only in their imagination. Control, this is Shadow 7, Lewis reported back to Earth. Lee, Big Fleet is still chasing ghosts in the Kelver system. They've been there for 3 days now. Copy that, Shadow 7, came the reply from General Cole. Continue monitoring. Phase 4 begins in 6 hours. Phase 4 was the final stroke of human strategy. After months of confusion and deception, the humans were ready to offer the Zephyrians something they had never expected, a way out of the war that would let them keep their dignity. Captain Rachel Torres had been chosen for the most important diplomatic mission in human history. Her ship, the Harmony, was unarmed and broadcasting peaceful intentions on all frequencies as it approached the Zephyrian capital. Zephyrian Command, this is Captain Rachel Torres of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps, she transmitted. I carry a message from Earth's leadership to your High Council. We request permission to approach and deliver this message in person. The response took several hours, during which Torres could imagine the frantic discussions happening on Zephyria Prime. Finally, the reply came. Human vessel, you are granted safe passage to our capital. Any aggressive action will result in your immediate destruction. Understood, Torres replied calmly. Thank you for your courtesy. On Zephyria Prime, Admiral Kethfor was pacing in his private office. This could be a trap, he said to Veltham. What if this diplomatic mission is actually an attack? Sir, Veltham replied, after everything we've experienced with the humans, I'm not sure we can tell the difference anymore. That was exactly the psychological state the humans had been working toward. The Zephyrians were so confused and uncertain that they couldn't trust their own judgment about human intentions. Dr. William Barnes, who had designed much of the deception campaign, was also aboard the Harmony. His job was to present the Zephyrians with evidence of something that would change everything. Proof that the humans understood the Zephyrian Empire better than the Zephyrians understood themselves. When the Harmony arrived at Zephyria Prime, Captain Torres was escorted by a full honor guard to the High Council chamber. The massive crystalline room was intimidating, designed to make visitors feel small and powerless. But Torres had been prepared for this. Honored Council Leader Zephyra, she began, speaking in perfect Zephyrian, I bring greetings from Earth and an offer of mutual respect between our peoples. The Council was surprised that a human could speak their language so well. They were even more surprised by what Torres said next. We know you are wondering how this war will end, she continued. We know you are questioning your intelligence reports, doubting your strategies, and wondering if you can trust your own commanders. We know this because we have been studying you for months, not just your military tactics, but your culture, your psychology, your deepest fears and greatest strengths. Council Leader Zephyra leaned forward. You admit to spying on us? We admit to understanding you, Torres replied. Just as you have been studying us. The difference is that we learned what you truly value, while you only saw what you expected. To see double quotes Dr. Barnes stepped forward and activated a holographic display. With your permission, I would like to show you something. The display showed detailed analyses of Zephyrian culture, politics, and social structure. But these weren't the crude observations of primitive aliens. They were sophisticated studies that revealed insights about Zephyrian society that even the Zephyrians themselves had never considered. You see yourselves as natural rulers of the galaxy, Barnes explained. Your entire identity is built on the belief that you are superior to all other species. But what happens when you encounter a species that refuses to be inferior? Admiral Kethfor, who had been summoned to attend the meeting, stared at the display in amazement. These analyses, they're more detailed than our own intelligence reports about ourselves. That's because we approached you as equals, not as subjects, Torres said. We studied you to understand you, not to conquer you. The final surprise came when Torres presented the human proposal. We offer you alliance, not surrender. We offer partnership, not submission. We offer mutual defense against common threats, not the expansion of either of our empires at the other's expense. Council Leader Zephyra was quiet for a long moment. And if we refuse, then this war continues. Torres said simply. And you know how that has been going. It was a statement that carried enormous weight. The Zephyrians did know how the war was going. They were losing, not because they were weak, but because they couldn't fight an enemy they couldn't understand or predict. Why would you offer us alliance? Asked another council member. You could continue your campaign and eventually defeat us completely. Dr. Barnes smiled, because that's not who we are. We don't fight to conquer. We fight to survive and to protect what we value. What we value most is the right to exist as free beings in a galaxy big enough for many different species. Over the next several hours, the humans presented their vision for the future. Instead of one empire dominating the galaxy, they proposed a confederation of independent species working together for mutual benefit. The Zephyrians would keep their territory and their autonomy, but they would also gain something they had never had before: true allies instead of conquered subjects. The debate in the High Council went on for days. Some members wanted to continue the war, convinced that Zephyrian superiority would eventually triumph. Others argued that the humans had already proven their point, that superior technology and numbers meant nothing against superior strategy and adaptability. Finally, Admiral Kethvar was asked for his professional opinion. Council leader, he said, I have spent my entire career studying warfare. I understand tactics, strategy, logistics, and command. But these humans have shown me something I never imagined, that the most powerful weapon in the galaxy is not superior firepower, but superior thinking. He paused, looking around the chamber. They have defeated us not by destroying our ships, but by making it impossible for us to use our ships effectively. They have conquered us not by occupying our territory, but by occupying our thoughts. They have proven that there is no limit to what intelligence can achieve when it refuses to accept limitations. So you recommend we accept their alliance? Sephara asked. I recommend we accept the lesson they have taught us, Kethvar replied. That in a galaxy full of different species, with different capabilities, survival depends not on being the strongest, but on being the wisest. The vote was close, but the alliance was approved. The Zephyrian Empire would join with humanity in a new kind of galactic organization, one based on cooperation rather than conquest. 6 months later, Admiral Kethvar and General Cole stood together on the bridge of a joint human-Zephyrian exploration vessel, heading toward a distant star system where new threats were rumored to exist. I must admit, Kethvar said, working with humans has been ... educational. How so? Cole asked. You have taught us that strength is not about having no limits, he replied. It is about refusing to accept the limits that others try to place on you. Cole nodded. And you've taught us that sometimes the best way to win a war is to help your enemy understand that they don't really want to fight it. As their ship jumped into hyperspace, both commanders knew they were heading into an uncertain future. But they also knew they were better prepared to face that future together than either of their species had been alone. The humans had studied Zephyrian tactics and found them predictable. The Zephyrians had studied human tactics and found no limit to their force. In the end, both species had learned that the greatest victories come not from defeating your enemies, but from turning them into allies. And in the vast galaxy ahead of them, full of